Okay, hello everybody. Hope you're all doing good. Good morning to everyone. Right, screens. Okay, right, fine. So, shall we start? How many people are there? 11 people are there. Maybe we wait for one more minute. 11:35 will start. Okay, I think we have that's the amount of people we can have today, right? So let me share my screen. Okay, so hope you all remember what we saw last class, right? We just saw. Okay. Okay, so we started with the history of periodic table, Dobrinus triads, Newland's laws of actives, Mendeleev's periodic table. What are the problems they faced? The periodic function they used were atomic mass. So the isotope is a problem, right? So we saw here isotopes is a problem. You need to give different places for the isotopes. If I am going to use atomic mass, right? So then came the modern periodic table, which is going to use atomic number as the periodic function. Then we saw what are groups, what are periods, what are the elements in each group, what are the general valence electronic configuration in all these groups, right? And all you have to remember is next element in the same period, you'll have one extra electron in the same shell. And then if you go down the group in the element in the same period, sorry, same group will have similar valence electronic configuration. Okay, similar valence electronic configuration. And then I told you that there are 7 periods, 7 periods and 18 groups, right? For all of them, we saw what is the general electronic configuration, right? General electronic configuration, S block elements, P block elements, D and F block elements, transition elements, inner transition elements, right? So transition elements are D block, inner transition elements are F block, right? And then moving on, we went on to see that if I give you the atomic number, you will be able to find the mass number and the this okay. Group 1 is called alkali metals. Group 2 is called alkaline earth metals. D block I told you transition elements. F block I told you inner transition elements. Nitrogen group is called as chalcogens, that is group 15. Group 17 is called halogens. Group 18 is called noble gases or inert elements, right? And then we saw if I give you the atomic number, how will you find the period number and group number? All these things we saw last class, right? And if I give you the group number and period number, how will you find the atomic number? That also we saw. For that, there are some rules, right? If you hope you remember, just you find the valence shell. If you find the valence shell, period is done, right? For finding the group, either you can use this formula, right? You can use the shortcut, or you can remember the magic numbers 2, 8, 18, 36, 54. All these things you can remember, and accordingly you'll be able to do it, right? And then we saw this atomic trends, right? How certain things vary down the group and from left to right of the period, how it varies, right? First thing what we saw was atomic size, right? So atomic size, I told you, down the group it increases, along the period from left to right of the period it decreases, right? Why? Down the group I keep on going, lithium, sodium, potassium, all these things, you will just keep on increasing the number of shells. Here I have only 2 shells, here I have 3 shells, 4 shells, so the size keeps on increasing because the number of shells increases, right? But when I go along the period, what is going to happen? Since I'm adding more and more electron in the same shell, right? From lithium to beryllium, you can understand, say it is 2s1, beryllium will be 2s2, boron will be 2p1, right? You add in the same shell, right? So what is going to happen? The nuclear charge, that is the force between the nucleus and the electron, keeps on increasing, right? Okay, so by that I can say that if the force increases, the atomic size constricts, right? Thereby the size, atomic size decreases, right? So that's why we say that down the group the size increases, and along the period from left to right of the period the size decreases, right? So this is where we stopped last class, right? Okay, so today's class will start. Okay, so you guys are 11th, and today is what, 15th of August, 1507. And by the way, happy Independence Day to everyone, right? So now this year, like there'll not be any, like if you've been in school, they would have hoisted your flags, given you chocolates, parade would have happened, so many things would have happened. Right? But yeah, this pandemic is spoiling everything. Anyways, together or not, right? We should be proud that we should be proud of a country, right? And you should actually cherish that this day we got independence, right? Anyways, so moving on for today's topic, right? So first atomic trend we saw was atomic size, right? The next thing what we can look at is say we can look into nuclear charge. Okay, like actually I can tell that the next atomic trend can be nuclear charge. Okay, so nuclear charge, you know what is this? Is nothing but the force of attraction between the nucleus and the electron, right? And as I already told you, this and atomic size are inversely related. Correct. More and more nuclear charge, less and less will be the atomic size, right? So I can now directly, since they're direct inversely proportional, right? So can I say when I go down the group, right, atomic size increases, so nuclear charge will decrease, right? From left to right of the period, right? What is happening? Like the atomic size decreases, so the nuclear charge increases along the period from left to right of the period, right? So that can be the second atomic trend which you can look into, nuclear charge, right? Okay. Now, guys, in your NCERT textbook, do they mention anything about the shielding effect or penetration effect? Anything they mention? Do they mention anything like that in your NCERT? Yes, do they mention it?
I will check and tell.
Yeah, please. And the check for the go into the periodic table chapter and let me know whether they are mentioning any of this. If there's not there in your syllabus, then there's no point in teaching you about shielding effect and other things. That do you have?
Yes, sir, it is there.
It is there. Okay, cool. Right. So whenever you speak about nuclear charge, we are talking about the force. I would say the nucleus is there, positive charge, right? And we are talking about the force between this nucleus and the electron. We're talking about the valence electron. Please remember this. Okay, whenever we talk about nuclear charge, right, we speak about the force of attraction between the nucleus and the valence electron, the last electron in the last shell. That's what we speak. Okay, right. So now, as I think we already just gave a quick introduction about shielding effect last class, so we are going to see little in depth what is happening here. Right. So what is going to happen is, people, right, say I have the nucleus, first shell, say 2 electrons, second shell, say I have 1 electron. Okay, now say what is going to happen if I see how much amount of force this particular electron experiences. Okay, now that force is obviously less when compared to the force experienced by these 2 electrons. Is it not? Because they are closer to the nucleus, right? Hope you remember the electrostatic force. What is the formula, guys? You know, anybody knows what is the electrostatic force formula? Charge between, say, a force of attraction or force of repulsion. Anybody knows what is the formula? Okay, for no issues, I can give you that. It's some constant K, Q1 into Q2 divided by R squared. In the sense that Q1 and Q2 are the amount of charges, right? For electron, there's some charge. For nucleus, there is some charge. And this R represents the distance between the nucleus and the electron. Okay, so what you understand is if the nucleus and electron are very close by each other, very close to each other, then the force will be very high. Like this is not less this thing. less R, more is the force. You can, from the formula, you can understand. Or by the logic also you can understand. If they're very close, force is very large, little far away, little force is less. Okay, so what is going to happen is, I would say that as I said, this electron will experience lesser force, and these two electrons will experience more force. Okay, so what I can tell is that this electron, this particular electron, is shielded from the nucleus by these two electrons. What do you mean by shielding? Protecting, right? So this particular electron which is there in the valence shell is getting protected from the nucleus by these two electrons. They will take up maximum amount of force, and little minimum force only will go to this electron, right? So this particular effect is what is called a shielding effect, right? The valence electrons are shielded from the nucleus by the inner electrons. Hope you're able to get the point. Again, I repeat, valence electrons are shielded, it is protected by the inner electrons from the force of attraction of the nucleus. Okay, right? So it's obviously understood that if I have more and more number of inner electrons, more and more will be the shielding effect. Is it not? Say, let me give you another scenario. I have, I'm sorry, guys, please bear with my diagrams. So 2 electrons here, say 8 electrons. Should I draw another diagram properly? 1 second, guys. Okay, right. So now if I draw it properly, this is the nucleus, first shell, second shell, and third shell, right? Say first shell has 2 electrons, second shell has, say I'm just giving you a random picture, second shell has 4 electrons. Basically, I need to have 8 electrons. Just giving you a scenario, and there is 1 electron in the third shell. Okay, say another scenario I give you. There is a nucleus, first shell, second shell, third shell. First shell has again same 2 electrons. Now say second shell has 8 electrons, and like how it's normally there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And there is 1 electron in the third shell. Okay, right. Now if you compare the shielding effect of this particular electron and this particular electron, if you try to compare, what will happen? You will easily understand that this particular electron is shielded by how many electrons you calculate. Now in this case, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 in the second shell and 2 electrons in the first shell. Totally 6 electrons are shielding this particular electron, right? The same way, if you check for this electron, right? If you check for this electron, how many electrons are shielding it? 2 electrons in the first shell, 8 electrons second shell. So 10 electrons are shielding this particular electron from the nuclear force of attraction, right? So I would say this electron is more shielded than this electron. This is less shielded. Okay, this is less shielded. Okay, now this is like, so the more amount of shielding or less amount of shielding is obviously going to depend upon the number of inner electrons present. That is one criteria. The second criteria is, even if I have same number of electrons, right? Even if I have same numbers of electron shielding, right? But then in which orbital or in which subshell they are there, that also matters. Let me give you an example, right? Okay, now look at this. Say for what example I can give? Say I have for a good example. Wait. Say if I take sodium, which is 1s2, 2s2, 2p6, and 3s1, and say I need 1s2, 2s2, 2p6, 3s2, 3p1, something. Okay, I think what is the next one? It would be, I think, what will be what is the number? 10, 10 plus 3, 13. 13 is what? Phosphorus, something. Okay, right. Now see, but the number of electron shielding are not same. Right? I want to take a case where the number of electron shielding is getting similar. What example I can give? Here there are 2p6. This is in p orbital. Anyways, like I assume that, assume that the number of electrons are, a number of inner electrons are same. Here I have one valence electron, here I have one valence electron, but obviously the number of electrons shielding are a little different here. 2 electrons are higher here, right? But just assume that the number of electrons are same, number of inner electrons are same, right? So if you get such a case, right? If you get such a case, remember S, P, D, F, right? Now look at this. Okay, so this particular thing is what is the shielding power. Okay, so what I'm trying to tell you here is that if the inner electron is there in the s orbital, I'm talking about the inner electrons. Again, I repeat. Okay, I'm talking about the inner electrons. Okay, so if the inner electron is in s orbital, right? If the inner electron is in s orbital, right, that will have more shielding power than p orbital, than the electrons in p orbital, right? Now, same way, if the electron is in d orbital, the inner electrons are in d orbital, right? They will have lesser shielding than the inner electrons in p orbital. Same goes with d and f, right? So if you look at this example, and I ask you to assume the fact that the number of inner electrons are same, right? Obviously, the number of electrons not same, right? But you look at this, right? Say now this is the valence shell and this is the valence shell. Now you look at the previous electron. The previous electron is in p orbital here. Okay, but you look at this, the previous electron is in s orbital. Okay, the previous electron is in s orbital, right? So if you look into this, now I told you that the inner electron, if it is s orbital, this has more shielding power than the electron in p orbital. Correct. So I would say when I compare the shielding effect of these two electrons, right, I would say this electron is more shielded than this electron. This is less shielded. Okay, why? Because the inner electron here is in s orbital, but the inner electron is in here in p orbital. P orbital has lesser shielding power than the s orbital. Okay, but this is not a very good example, but all I wanted to understand is this, right? If you get a case, I'm not able to get you a perfect example, but if you get a case where the number of inner electrons are same, right? And then they ask you to find which is having more shielding or less shielding, you have to remember the fact that the inner electron, if it is there in s orbital, that will have more shielding power than the p, than d, than f. Okay, this is the point I wanted to convey. Okay, now because
Sir,
of this, what? Please tell me.
sir, in case of 3D and 4P, sir, 3D gets filled first. So D
Yeah.
will be like in the inner shell, subshell, right?
Correct, correct. D will be
Sir,
the
so
inner
in that
subshell.
case,
Yeah, go on.
sir, then D will have like greater shielding effect
No,
than
no,
P,
no.
right?
It doesn't matter whether it's 3 or 4 or 5 or 6. It doesn't matter. It's all about SPDF, right? When the inner electron is in P and D, obviously P has more shielding power than D electrons. That's it. That's all you have to remember. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Understood? Right. Okay. Now see this particular thing, whatever I'm talking about, right, is very predominant when I go for actinides and lanthanides. What are these? Which block it belongs to, guys? Actinide and lanthanides. Which block are these? Which block they belong to?
F block.
F block. Hope you remember. In the D block, 57 to some number and some number to some number was missing, right? So those numbers alone was alone down in the periodic table. Like the first one was lanthanum, La, then you put AC here and all the other elements are present, right? So this entire first row are what are called as lanthanides. Okay, and this entire second row are what are called as actinides. Okay, now they are going to have a very distinct problem, like especially with respect to the shielding effect. Okay, now you look at this, like we expect right? We expect, actually, before this, like, see, before lanthanum, if I can show you the periodic table, that's better. 1 second, wait. Let me show you the periodic table. Okay. Now look at this. Now I have scandium, yttrium, and then lanthanum, right? Here. Hope you're able to see that. Are you able to see the cursor, people? The something is moving. Are you able to see that? Are you able to see the cursor moving?
Yes, sir.
Okay, right. So what I'm telling is, now generally what happens when I go down the group, what happens to atomic size? Atomic size should increase. Correct. So scandium should have a lesser size than yttrium, and yttrium should have lesser size than lanthanum. Basically, lanthanum comes here. Correct. But what I see is that lanthanum is having lesser size than yttrium. Again, I repeat, right? So I cannot write it here. Maybe wait 1 second. I will download this image and I think I'll be able to do a better job. How can I download this image? Okay. Okay, let me go to my. Okay. How do I make this big? Okay. Okay, fine. Yeah, right. So now you look at this. I have scandium, yttrium, and then lanthanum comes, right? So what I expect the size order to be, scandium should have lesser size than Y, and then yttrium should have lesser size than La. This is what we expect, right? Lanthanum should have more size because down the group, if I go, atomic size should increase. Correct, right? So, but what will happen? What you see is that scandium and yttrium are okay, right? But when compared yttrium and lanthanum, yttrium is having more size than lanthanum. Okay, now why is it like this is the question. Now, why is it like this is because till yttrium, you have d electron. Basically, the d electrons are filled. Okay, but when you go into lanthanum, what will happen? You are going to f electron, you are going to the f orbital, right? So what is happening? F orbitals has very, very poor screening. Okay, shielding effect can also be called as shielding effect. Right, so f orbital has very poor screening effect, right? So what will happen? There will be some valence electron here and there will be some valence electron here. Now this valence electron is very poorly shielded, right? But this valence electron is more shielded. Now why is it like this? Is because here it goes to f orbital. F orbital has very poor screening effect. I told you the order SPDF. This is the order of screening power or screening effect, right? So f orbital has a very poor screening effect. So the valence shell will not be shielded properly. So this will suffer more nuclear charge, more force, I would say, right, than this particular electron. Now, if the nuclear charge increases, what happens to the size? The size constricts. Okay, so this is a very, very important problem, and this entire thing is what is called as lanthanoid contraction. Have you ever heard this term? Did they teach you in school this term, lanthanoid contraction? Did you see this term, guys? Anybody remembers this term, or did they even tell you this in school? Yes, no?
No, sir.
No. Okay. So what happens here? You understand, right? We expect when I go down the group, the size increases. but between yttrium and lanthanum, the size decreases. Why? Because in lanthanum, the electron enters into f orbital, and f orbital has poor screening effect. And if it is poor screening effect, this electron is very poorly shielded. That means this electron experiences way more force than this particular electron. Right? So you look at this, even though the shell increases, right? The number of shell will increase here in this between yttrium and lanthanum. Even then, you see that since I have f orbital to have a poor screening effect, right? Lanthanum will have a lesser size than yttrium. And the same thing happens when I go from again lanthanum to this thing. What is that? Actinium also. Okay. So these are the things you can remember regarding your shielding effect. Okay. Any questions anybody has? Everybody understood what is screening effect and shielding effect?
Sir,
Any questions?
is nuclear charge inversely proportional to screening effect?
Nuclear charge inversely proportional to screening effect. I would say if the electron is highly shielded, right? More, I would say, how do I put it? More shielded the valence electron is, right? Valence electron is, less will be the nuclear charge. Obviously, this is the correct way to put it, because if it is more shielded means what? The inner electron will take up most of the nuclear charge. So obviously the valence electron will suffer lesser nuclear charge. That way we can say for sure. Yeah.
Okay. Sir, I have a doubt.
Yeah, please tell me.
Sir, why will this lanthanoid contraction take place between what do you say, lanthanium and actinium? Lanthanum and actinium.
Okay, why is it happening between these two is what you're asking?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so here why it happens is because, say here, the electron goes into, do I have a space? Yeah, electron goes into 4f and here it goes into 5f. Okay, now generally we don't discriminate between 4 and 5 and 6 as I told you, but if it is for SF orbital, it matters. Okay, 5f has very poor screening effect compared to 4f. Are you able to understand? Okay, 5f orbital has very poor screening effect compared to 4f. That is why we again have actinoid contraction. In that case, it is going to be called as actinoid contraction.
Okay, sir.
Right, but again, don't worry about it. Like you don't have to worry about this so much. 4f and 5f and all. It is not there for you. Okay, but it's a good question. Why it happens is because 5f has little more poor screening effect than 4f. That's the reason why it's like this. Okay, any other questions anybody has? Okay, I hope everything is clear, right? Shielding effect and screening effect, right? Okay, so because of screening effect and shielding effect, there is one more thing which will be affected. Let me tell you, the third atomic trend we are going to see today is ionization enthalpy or energy. They call it as ionization energy itself. Okay, the third one is what is called as ionization energy. Okay, we already saw ionization energy in your atomic chapter, right? In your Bohr's model, right? But that there, I told you, like the modern definition of ionization energy and the definition gave by Bohr was a little different. Is it not? Can someone tell me what was the difference there? What is the difference between the modern definition of ionization energy and what is the definition we saw there in Bohr's model? What is the basic difference there?
Sir, modern definition, we talk about the valence shell.
Correct.
Whereas in Bohr's, he told from first to infinite orbit.
Absolutely. That is the difference, right? So in modern definition, we talk only about the valence electrons. That is, the electron is there in the last shell, right? But in Bohr, the definition says it is the energy required, right? It is the energy required to take the electron from the first shell, only first shell, to the infinite shell, right? But here in modern definition, I'm going to take the valence electron from, the energy required to take out the valence electron from the atom, from inside the atom to outside. What is the energy required? Is what is my ionization energy. Okay. Now I think you can take a proper definition, people. Take down the definition for ionization energy. Please take down, everybody. It is the energy required. It is the energy required to overcome It is the energy required to overcome the nuclear force of attraction. It is the energy required to overcome the nuclear force of attraction and remove an valence electron. And means only one. Okay, an valence electron. Okay, I'll repeat the statement, people. It is the energy required to overcome the nuclear force of attraction and remove the valence electron. Very, very simple. Right? It's very simple now, people. Like, say, I have the nucleus with me. Say this is the first shell, second shell, whatever it is. Now, this nucleus and this electron will again obviously have a force of attraction. Now, if I have to remove this electron, take out this electron, obviously I have to overcome this force of attraction. For that, I have to supply some energy. Is it not? Only if I'm able to supply some energy, or say I have to supply some energy in this direction, pull the electron in this direction. Is it not? Only then I'll be able to come out of the nuclear force of attraction, and then the electron can come out. How much energy you spend in doing that is what is called as ionization energy. Okay, right? Now remember, ionization energy talks only about one electron at a time. Right? Say in the valence shell, you have 3 electrons, 4 electrons, 5 electrons, doesn't matter. We talk only about one electron at a time. Right? Say now, we'll try to understand this. Okay. Say I have sodium becoming sodium plus. Obviously, what I have to do, I have to remove an electron. Okay. Now, obviously, I understand, or I'll take a better example. I'll take magnesium. Okay. See, magnesium has 1s2, 2s2, 2p6, 3s2. Am I right? Yeah, right. Okay, right. Say now when I supply the ionization energy, i.e. if I supply, what will happen? Mg will become Mg plus. Now what will be the configuration here? 1s2, 2s2, 2p6, 3s1, because I've removed one electron from the valence shell. Right. Now again I supply ionization energy. What will happen? I form Mg2 plus. Now in this case, I have again 1s2, 2s2, and 2p6. Okay. Now please understand, people, this energy and this energy are not same. Even the name itself will be different. If I'm going to remove the first valence electron, okay, if I'm going to remove the first valence electron, the ionization energy is called the first ionization energy. First ionization energy means energy required to take out the first valence electron. Okay, right. Now, obviously when I'm going to remove the second valence electron, in that case, it is going to be called as second ionization energy. Okay, so now if I ask you, what is the total ionization energy? You will tell that it is equal to IE1 plus IE2, in the sense that the first ionization energy plus the second ionization energy will give you the overall ionization energy of the process coming to Mg to Mg2 plus. Okay, right? Or what I'm trying to tell you is that with one ionization energy, we can remove only one electron. If you want to remove the second electron, that energy required will be again different. The value will be different. The name is different. The name is different to be, it is going to be called as second ionization energy. Okay, I hope this makes very good sense. Okay, now what we'll try to understand, we understood what is ionization energy, what is first ionization energy, second ionization energy, overall or total ionization energy, that we understood. Okay, next what we have to understand is down the group, how it will vary, and along the period, how it will vary is the question we have to answer. Because I'm talking about the atomic trends, right? Down the group, along the period, how one particular quantity changes, right? Okay, we'll try to understand that, right? So when I go down the group, right? When I go down the group, again, I will take the this thing, lithium, sodium, potassium as the example, right? So now this has 2s1, this has 3s1, and the potassium will have 4s1. Okay, now think about it and tell me, guys, ionization energy will depend on what and all factors? Tell me. Ionization energy will depend on what and all factors? If I have to remove an electron, if I have to compare all of these, right, what is the criteria which we'll look into?
The nuclear charge.
Okay, fine. Nuclear charge is obviously an factor. Then obviously atomic size. Okay, now like if chuck nuclear charge, because I know nucleus and atomic size are directly, inversely related. So if I can understand about the what is that, the atomic size, then I'll be able to understand how ionization energy and atomic size are related. Very simple, right? Now look at this, people. Say an electron is in the first shell. Now the valence electron is in the second shell. Now what happens? This electron and this nucleus will have some force of attraction, and this electron and this nucleus will have, say, some force of attraction. Now tell me, which one is greater, F1 or F2? The force between the electron in the first orbit and nucleus, or the force between electron in the second orbit and nucleus, which force will be greater, F1 or F2?
F1.
Absolutely right. Because this electron is closer to the nucleus, so it will be very stronger pull. The nuclear charge will be very high for this electron than to this electron, right? So obviously what will happen if I have to take out this electron out, right? The amount of energy spent is very high, right? But in this case, if I have to remove the electron, since the electron is not that tightly bound, that's the exact word I can use. If the electron is not that tightly bound, obviously the energy supplied is less. It is very easy for us to remove the electron. Easy in the sense in terms of energy. Lesser energy itself, the electron will come out, right? So in this case, I can easily supply lower energy and take the electron out. Okay, so what you're understanding, as the electron goes, as the valence electron goes far away and far away and far away from the nucleus, right? The electron is less and less and less tightly bound to the nucleus, and it will become more and more and more easy for us to remove the electron. When I say more and easy for me to remove the electron, all I'm trying to say is that less and less energy is required for us to remove the electron. Yes. Okay. Now it's very simple. Now the electron is in 3s1. Here it is in 2s1. Here it is in 4s1. Obviously, this electron is the farthest from the nucleus, right? So obviously, removing an electron from potassium is little easy when compared to removing an electron from sodium, right? Same way, removing an electron from lithium will become very difficult because the electron is very, very close to the nucleus, very tightly held electron with the nucleus, right? So now what do you understand? From potassium, it is very easy. That means lesser energy, right? Now this is little higher than this, and this will have maximum amount of energy to be spent for the electron to come out. Correct? Right? So now what can I say now? When I go down the group, I see that the electron becomes lesser and lesser tightly bound, so that it becomes more and more easy for the electron to come out. So that means the amount of energy spent is also keeping on decreasing when I go down the group. Okay, so what is happening here? When I go down the group, the ionization energy decreases. Why it decreases? Because the nuclear charge is decreasing. It is becoming more and more easy for us to remove the electron. When I go down the group, the electron goes far and far away from the nucleus. Right? Okay, now I think you'll be able to understand what happens when I go along the period. Right? Along the period, I know the size keeps on decreasing. The valence electron keeps coming closer and closer and closer to the nucleus. Thereby, it is becoming more and more difficult for us to remove the electron. Thereby, I can say that more and more energy has to be spent for the electron to come out. Right? So when I go along the period, people, I can easily say that the ionization energy increases. Right? So when I compare lithium, beryllium, boron will have more ionization energy than beryllium, than lithium. But in this case, lithium will have maximum energy, then comes the sodium, then comes potassium. Down the group, it decreases. Along the period, it increases. Very, very simple. Okay. right? Fine. Now, what about the first ion? Okay, we spoke about only about the ionization energy. In this case, you have to remove only one electron. Okay, right. Now, what if I have to remove two electrons, like magnesium? Then what will happen? We'll try to understand that. Okay, right. Now look at this people, right? Say magnesium, if I take, I already said that I'm going to have 1s2, 2s2, 2p6, 3s2, right? Say now Mg becoming Mg plus. Now in this case, I have to apply the first ionization energy. Mg, I know the configuration. Mg plus would have had 1s2, 2s2, 3s1, and going from Mg to Mg2, sorry, Mg plus to Mg2 plus. That is, I have to supply the second ionization energy. In this case, the configuration would have become 1s2, 2s2, 2p6. Okay, my question is, right, which energy will be greater? First ionization energy is greater or second ionization energy is greater? I want everybody to put the answer in the chat box. Which is higher? What do you think? What do you think will be higher? First ionization energy or second ionization energy?
Sir, could you repeat the question?
Yeah, sure. What I'm asking is, for going from Mg to Mg plus, it is first ionization energy. The configuration is this. And for Mg, you know, the configuration is this. Right. Now, from Mg to Mg2 plus, if I have to go, I have to supply the second ionization energy to become the configuration to be like this. Now, the question is, which is greater? First ionization energy is greater or second ionization energy is greater? That's the question. Put the answers in the chat box. First or second, which is higher? Okay, second ionization energy will be greater. Madhumita also says the same thing. Harshita says the same thing. Okay, come on. Okay, I think second will be greater as nuclear charge of Mg plus is greater than Mg. Okay, so Raghav also says second. Okay, others? Anybody wants to contribute? Everybody's checking. Anybody wants to disagree or agree with them?
Sir,
Yeah.
sir, can you explain why across the period ionization enthalpy decreases?
Very simple. Across the period, what happens to size?
Sir, in regards with nuclear charge.
Same thing. Okay, when I go along this period, what happens to nuclear charge? Increases or decreases? Increases. So if nuclear force of attraction increases, it will become more and more tougher for us to remove the electron then. Correct? So I have to spend more and more energy. That's why along the period, ionization energy increases.
Sir, but then, for example, if you remove an electron, the nuclear charge will decrease, right?
If I remove an electron, oh, see, if I remove an electron, nuclear charge will come back to that point. Hold your thought. Okay, we'll come back to that. Hold your thought. Okay, now, yes, anybody wants to agree or disagree? So most of you are saying that second ionization energy will be greater than the first. Okay, yes, your answer is correct. Okay, anybody want to tell me why is it like this? Someone says, Suprajit says that it is because I have high nuclear charge in Mg plus than Mg. Now, if Suprajit can answer this question, how is the nuclear charge higher? Then I think Raghav's question is answered. Suprajit, you want to contribute? Why do you think like?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, please tell me.
Sir, so when Mg plus means there's only 11 electrons and 12 protons. Okay. So the 12 protons can easily attract 11 electrons than 12 electrons.
Absolutely, absolutely. Right, that's it.
So the electrons will be more closer to the protons and the nuclear charge will be more.
Absolutely, absolutely. Excellent point, right? So I think Raghav, you got your point, right? So what happens when I remove an electron? What happened? In this case, you see there are totally 12 electrons and 12 protons. Or okay, fine, 12 electrons and 12 protons, or say nucleus, right? Now, so obviously 12 protons and 12 new electrons will have some force of attraction. Right now, when I go to Mg plus, what happens? Mg plus, what happens is I have only 11 electrons, but protons are same. Still 12 protons. So now what will happen? This 12 protons will attract this 11 electrons with still greater force. Now say here the force is F1, here the force is F2. F2 will be greater than F1 because 12 protons are attracting 11 electrons. In this case, 12 protons are attracting 12 electrons. So the force will be little less here. Right? Hope you understand. I'm not talking, or you look at it like this. Okay, right? Now say when I go to I have the configuration as 3s2 here, right? Now, when I remove an electron, it's okay. First ionization energy, okay, 3s1 is there. Okay, now there are 2 electrons, or I'll talk like this. Or see, if we can understand this point, we'll come back to this point. Okay, this point will come back. How second ionization energy is greater than the first ionization, we'll come back to that. Okay, before that, we will try to understand how ionic size will be. What I'm trying to ask is, if I have Na and Na plus, right, which will have a higher size, which will have a lower size. If I can understand this, right, whichever is having a lower size, from that removing an electron is very difficult. Yes, the point is understood. Again, I repeat, among Na and Na, or we are talking about Mg and Mg plus itself, right? Okay, we'll take Mg and Mg plus. Okay, so among these two, whichever is having lesser size, right, now there it will be more difficult for us to remove the electron. Is it not? Because the electron will be closer to the nucleus, more nuclear charge, right? Now, if I can understand which is going to have lesser size and more size, my problem is solved, right? Now, let us try to understand what is going to happen. Okay, right. Now, please understand, when I remove an electron, like say, I'll assume it like this. Okay, I had 2 electrons initially, right? Say total, like the total force of attraction between the nucleus and the electron is 20 Newton. Just giving you a point. Okay, the total force between the nucleus and the total 2 electron is 20 Newton. Okay, right. Now I remove an electron from this. I have a nucleus. I have only 1 electron now, right? So what I'll try to understand is, if I say 20 Newton, this electron will suffer 10 Newton and this electron will suffer 10 Newton. No problem, right? Now, when I have only 1 electron, the total force is still 10 Newton, 20 Newton only, right? But what is happening here? The entire 20 Newton is experienced by this particular electron only. Okay, this entire 20 Newton is experienced by this electron only. So what is going to happen? Obviously, the size will decrease. Okay, hope you're able to get the point, right? So now I had 2 electrons sharing 20 Newton, each having 10. But if I remove the 1 electron, 20 Newton is still there, but this sole electron, only 1 electron is experiencing 20 Newton. So obviously size will decrease. Okay, so if I ask you which is having more size, remember this is always a point. Cationic size, this is C, is always lesser than the parent atom. Always, whatever be the element it is. Okay, cationic size is always lesser than the parent atom, in the sense that Mg will have more size than Mg plus, Na will have more size than Na plus. Now, more and more electron you remove, more and more will be the size decrease, right? Or I can say that Mg plus will have more size than Mg2 plus. Same way, Na plus will have more size than Na2 plus. Like that, it keeps on going. More and more you remove an electron, more and more will be the constriction in the size. Okay, now this point you understand. Now this understanding why is it that the second ionization energy is greater is very, very much understood. Because Mg, right? Mg is having more size, right? Mg is having more size. The electron is a little far away. But once it forms Mg plus, this electron is little more close to the nucleus because the size is decreasing. Thereby removing this electron will become more difficult than removing this electron. Okay, that is why we say second ionization energy is always greater than the first ionization energy, and say third ionization energy will be still greater than the second ionization energy. It keeps on going. Okay, you can always remember third IE, irrespective of whichever the metal is, irrespective of whichever the element is, third ionization energy will always be greater than the second, and second will always be greater than the first. Why? Because more and more electron you remove, the size will keep on decreasing with the number of electrons you remove. Thereby, the nuclear charge increases, size decreases, ionization energy increases. Okay, Raghav, you got your point clear?
Yes, sir. But my doubt is, even if we add an electron to the valence shell,
okay,
to the same valence shell, the nuclear charge is increasing. Even if you remove the
Nuclear
electrons
charge
from the
is
same valence shell, nuclear charge is increasing.
See, like you should not be considering it as a process of adding an electron here. See, when I told you that, say, when I go along the period, say lithium, beryllium and all that, you are like, it's not like you add an electron to beryllium, you add an electron to lithium, it is going to become beryllium. It's not like that, right? Lithium already has 3 electrons, 3 protons, and in this case I have 4 electrons and 4 protons. Obviously the size is the force is higher here, right? So I told you that when I add electron the nuclear charge increases, just for your understanding, right? But lithium and beryllium acids are 2 different elements. It's not like you add electron to lithium, it will become Li minus. That's what it will become. It will not become beryllium. Why? Because still the atomic number is only 3. It has only 3 protons. Right. All you have to understand in this case is that there are 3 electron, 3 proton, lesser force, 4 electron, 4 proton, more force. Thereby, I say that it is having more nuclear charge. Right. Adding electron, I'll come to that point. We spoke about cation and the parent atom. Right. If I speak about the anionic size and the parent atom, in the sense, if I have to give you an example, I am trying to check what will be which will have higher size, whether Cl or Cl minus. If I try to understand
Cl minus,
this. Yes, Cl minus will have higher size. Now what you're trying to say is perfectly correct. But in this case, when I go along the period, adding electron in the same shell is not the exact way of explaining it. I told it because I wanted to understand, right? But now you see, yeah, please tell me.
Sir, could you explain how Cl minus has more radius, size?
Yes, absolutely. I'll come to that point. But just explaining, Raghav, hope you understand what I'm trying to say here. Between lithium and beryllium, you are not adding electron. It is the atom by itself in its own nature. But when you go to Cl minus, you are adding electron there. Then how you understand the difference in the nuclear charge from the Cl to Cl minus matters. Okay, now we'll see how it is going to matter. Okay, is your point clear now?
Sir, so Mg plus won't have same size as sodium atom.
Mg plus will have same size as sodium. No. It's not like that. Between parent atom and cationic size, parent atom is having more size. But ionic size exactly follows the same trend as atomic size. That means down the group, it increases, and along the period, decreases. In the sense that if I compare Li plus, Na plus, and K plus, still it holds good. Whatever holds good for atomic side, it holds good for the ionic size also. But say I compare Li plus and Be plus, or say I compare Na plus and Mg plus, obviously Na plus will have more size because along the period the size decreases. This holds good. This holds good for atomic size as well as ionic size. That is not changing. Okay.
Sir, if it is Na and Mg minus?
Na and Mg minus. Okay, fine. So Na and Mg minus, fine. We'll look into this. So Na, I have 1s2, 2s2, 2p6, 3s1. Now this would have become 3s2, right? Now 3s2, now I would say Mg minus will have more size. But again, like this is a very, like say a very hypothetical situation. But if it forms, yes, I'm going to have more size than magnesium. I mean, more size than sodium. Mg minus will have more size than sodium. Yes, happens. Okay. Right. Okay. Anyways, coming to the point between Cl and Cl minus, I'm telling that Cl minus will have more size than Cl. That means the anionic size is always greater than the parent atom, but the cationic size is always lesser than the parent atom. Okay, right. Now, how do we understand this? We'll understand this, right? Very simple. Exactly the opposite way of what we saw last time. Say electron is here. The valence electron is here. This electron is experiencing 20 Newton force. Okay, now I add one more electron to this. I have 2 electrons now. What is happening? Now this electron experiences 10, total 20 Newton again, right? And this electron experiences 10 Newton and this electron experiences 10 Newton. So basically what happens is these 2 electrons will try to move little away from the nucleus, right? So thereby, obviously this will have more force and this will have, this will have lesser force. This will have more force. Thereby I can say that Cl minus, when you add electron, right, the nuclear charge little decreases. It just distributes among the electron when you add it. right? Thereby the nuclear charge decreases and the size increases. Okay,
Sir, I have a doubt.
Tell me.
Sir, in this case, the proton is first attracting only one electron, but in the second case, the proton is attracting both the electrons. But we can also say that both the electrons are attracting the proton towards itself, right? So the size.
Both the electrons are attracting the proton towards itself. It doesn't matter. Like basically, when you talk with respect to electron and proton, I mean, when you talk with respect to electron, only the direction will change. Basically, if you tell that the electron is pulling the proton towards itself, the force is like this. When I say electron is getting pulled towards the proton, the force is like this, but same magnitude. The magnitude is very same. There is no difference in the this thing. What is that? Magnitude. Only the change in direction is there. That's it.
Sir, how is Mg minus 3s2?
Oh, sorry.
Proton.
It's 3p1. Yeah, 3s to 3p1. Yes, whatever it is. The answer is correct. Okay, right? So I hope everybody understood how is it that the anionic size is greater than the parent atom. It's very simple. 20 Newton here. Now 20 Newton becomes distributed among 10 Newton. The electron goes away. Very simple. Very, very simple. So the anionic size is always greater. Say if this will even continue, right? So I told you that Mg2 plus will have lesser size than Mg plus, and Mg will have a greater size than Mg, right? Now this holds good even for your anion, in the sense that if I compare O2 minus, O minus and O, oxygen, right? Now the more and more electron you add, more and more will be the size, in the sense that O2 minus will have more size than O minus will have more size. This is about the size which we're talking about, right? This is very simple. Cl will have lesser size than Cl minus. Same goes here. More and more electron you add, more and more will be the size it is going to become, because the nuclear charge is going to get distributed among the electrons are present when you add. That is what is going to happen.
Sir,
okay. Yeah. Tell me.
So can you write the electronic configuration as well for Mg2 plus Mg plus and Mg?
Sure. So this will be 3s2. This will be 3s1, and this will be 2p6.
Sir, actually, yes, sir. Can you write Mg3 plus also?
Mg3 plus will be 2p5. Okay.
Sir, here actually, the ionization enthalpy of Mg3 plus should be greater than Mg2 plus, right?
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah.
Sir, but then you told that ionization enthalpy will always increase.
Correct. Ionization energy of Mg3 plus will be more than that of Mg2 plus. Now also, and that's what I'm saying. When you remove electron, say if I talk about ionization energy, this is how it looks. Mg will have lesser ionization energy than Mg plus. Mg plus will have lesser than Mg2 plus, and Mg2 plus will have lesser than Mg3 plus. Basically, Mg3 plus will have the maximum amount of energy spent for the electron to come out. That's what I'm saying. Yes, absolutely true. Yes, okay.
Sir, now Mg2 plus is actually full filled orbitals, right?
Absolutely. Yes, I'm coming to that point. Okay. So now generally what I'm telling is that there's going to be an increase, right? But how much increase happens is again the question. Depending on how much is this increase in the successive ionization energy, you will be able to actually predict the valency. Let me tell you, wait, it's a very good question. See, look into this. Okay, say for some element X, okay, for some element X, they say that the first ionization energy is, say I'm just giving you some random numbers, it is 100 joules. Okay, the first ionization energy is 100 joules. Second ionization energy is 10,000 joules, and third ionization energy is say 10,100 joules. Okay, I'm just giving you this data. Okay, for an element X, I don't know which is the element is, what element it is. I don't know the atomic number, nothing I know. Okay, but what I'm telling is, first ionization energy is this much, 100 joules. Second ionization energy is 10,000 joules, right? And third ionization energy is 10,100 joules. Okay. Now, if I give you this data, this kind of question will be asked in your exams also sometimes. Okay. Now, if I give you this data and ask you, what is the valency of X? What will be your answer to this question? Can you think and tell me? Anyways, I'm going to tell you the answer. But can you think and tell me what is the valency of this X, element X? 2. Okay. Anybody has any other answers? I think you can put it in the chat box. Come on, everybody. You can put all your answers in the chat box, 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever it is. Go for it. I'm looking at the chat box. What will be the valency of X?
Sir, I have a doubt, sir.
Regarding this question?
No, sir.
Okay, then tell me. Yeah.
Sir, the penetrating or the shielding effect, sorry, not penetrating, shielding effect of Mg plus is greater than Mg2 plus.
Shielding effect of Mg plus is greater than that of Mg2 plus is what you're telling?
No, sir, wait, I'll be back 1 second.
Yeah, sure. Take your time. And meanwhile, guys, depending on the data which I give you, right, I'm asking you, what is the valency of X? Or I would say, how many valence electrons are present? No. It's better that I write only the valency. What is the valency of X? I can put the answers in the chat
Yes,
box.
sir. My question was, is the shielding effect of Mg and Mg plus the same?
No, it wouldn't be the same, right? So what happens here? In this case, I had 3s2 and 2p6, right? Say now, obviously 2p6 and before that so many electrons are there. So if I write this as 1 and 1 electron, okay? Say for any of this electron, if I take any of this electron is shielded by now say 7 electrons, like in this one and the 6th one, right? Now, when I go to Mg plus, it is going to have 3s1 2p6. Now the number of electrons shielding this particular electron will become only 6 electrons, right? So obviously it is not going to be same. Actually, in this case, what will happen? This electron is more shielded because I am having more number of electrons inside. Yes.
Understood, sir.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, think about this question now. What I asked. And put in the chat box. No answer came. Come on, everybody, participate. It can be a guess also. Doesn't matter if you're either right or wrong, but participate. What is the valency of X? Look at the values. 100, 10,000, 10,000, 100. You just have to type 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever the number which comes to your mind or whatever you feel is right. Go on. Put the answer in the chat box. It really doesn't matter whether you're right or wrong. It really doesn't matter. All it matters is the participation. Go for it. Okay, Suprajit says 2. Any other guesses anybody has? Come on, everybody. There are almost 12 people here. Right? Yeah, 10 people are there. Come on, I at least want 7, 8 answers, right? Only one answer I got. Are you guys still thinking or you don't want to answer?
Sir, can you explain how is it 2?
I didn't even say that the answer is 2. I'm just waiting for answers. What answers you're giving? I don't like. I'll tell you whether it's right or wrong in a while, but you give me your answers. Whatever you feel is the answer.
So we have to say the initial valency of X.
Yeah, obviously initial valency of X. Obviously, yeah. When I say valency, it's only for elements, not for ions. Nobody wants to participate. This is very bad on your part, people. It was only a guess game, right? Anyways, no issues.
So
Maybe there are some problems.
1 minute, can you?
Sure. Okay, take your time. Maybe I'll give you 2 more minutes for people to maybe think about it and give me an answer.
Sir, is the ionization enthalpy of Cl minus greater than Cl?
Ionization energy of Cl minus greater than Cl. Okay, we'll check it. 1 second. Okay, so now we can talk in terms of size only. If I talk about the size, Cl minus is having a greater size, right? But
Yes,
it's
sir.
not only, but it's not about the size. Okay, it's about, say, this is having 3p5, this is having 3p6. Okay, so even though the size is a little greater, now you see this is a fully filled configuration. Okay, this is a fully filled configuration. Removing an electron from fully filled configuration is very, very difficult. Okay, even though the size is a little greater, right? But this is extra stable. This is very highly stable. Okay, so if I remove electron from this, I'm going to have a lot of energy spent than in this case. So I will say the ionization energy of Cl is lesser than the ionization energy of Cl minus. Now, why? Is because Cl minus already attained off configuration. It is very stable. Removing an electron from this is very difficult than from here. So Cl only will have lesser ionization energy than Cl minus. Okay, now if you understood this question,
Okay.
this question can easily be answered. Yeah, someone wants to ask something?
Sir, you can explain, sir.
Okay, cool then. Right. Now look at this, people. Now, from this to this, look at the jump, 100 to 10,000. Right. Now, obviously, when you go from first to second to third, the ionization energy is keeping on increasing. That is not an issue. 100 to 10,000, 10,000 to 10,100, the fourth will still be higher. It's keeping on going. That is not an issue. But if you look at the difference in ionization energy, here it is 100 joules, here it is 10,000 joules. See how many times it is increasing, right? But again, here the difference is very small. Okay, but here the difference is very small. Now, whenever you see that there is a huge jump, right? Whenever you see, I think I asked the question. Yeah, okay, my question is right. Whenever you see there's a huge jump, right? That means after that particular process, that means after you spend the first ionization energy, that particular X plus would have been extremely stable. Right? That is why you are seeing from X plus, what I'm trying to say is that this is for X, the first ionization energy. When I say second ionization energy, this is for X plus, and this is for X2 plus, third ionization energy. Correct? So once you form X plus by supplying 100 joules, right? Now for changing X plus to X2 plus, you are spending 10,000 joules. You jump, right? But again, from going from X2 plus to X3 plus, again, is only little increase. So what I understand is for me to go from X plus to X2 plus, it is becoming very, very difficult because this is highly stable. X plus is highly stable. Stable in the sense it is having a very stable electronic configuration. Right? Now that means what? If I give you this example, you'll understand. Right?
Sir, is it one?
Say, yeah, valency is 1. Absolutely. The answer is 1. Right. Okay. So what I understand is I have sodium. Sodium is having 3s1 and 2p6 before this, obviously 2s2, 2p6. Right. Now sodium, I apply the first ionization energy. Right. It becomes Na plus. Now what is the configuration here? It is fully filled configuration. See, 1s2, 2s2, 2p6, noble gas configuration. Right. So now if you apply second ionization energy, it will become Na2 plus, right? But if you look at the jump here between first and second, it will be a huge jump. because here it is unstable. So I can easily remove an electron and get this configuration. But removing an electron from this to go to Na2 plus will be very difficult, very, very difficult, in the sense that you have to supply a huge amount of energy for the electron for it to become 2p5. Almost I would say it's impossible, right? Because this is fully filled configuration. Okay, so now that's exactly what is happening here. Because again, if I have to go from Na2 plus to Na3 plus, now this is a normal process. It is going to become 2p4. This is again unstable to again unstable only. But anyways, because of the nuclear charge increasing, I will have to supply obviously higher energy and the second ionization energy, but the jump will not be that much. Now you can say, now you can correlate this and this, what I told. Now here it is 100 because it is unstable, the first ionization energy. Now Na plus becomes very stable. So obviously I have to supply a lot of energy, 10,000 joules. Now from Na2 plus to Na3 plus is again fine. So little amount of energy, more energy is what we have to spend. So that will be around 10,100 joules.
So
Tell me.
Sir, ionization enthalpy of Na4 plus will be greater than Na5 plus, right?
Na4 plus and Na5 plus. Okay. Now Na4 plus would be 2p3 and Na5 plus would be 2p2. Yes. If I say this is from Na3 plus, see, the obviously the ionization energy is greater. Say this is IE4, this is IE5, right? Okay. Now what happens? IE4 to IE5, there's a huge jump again. No, sorry. Na4 plus to Na3 plus, there'll be a huge jump. Now again, why? Because again I have 2p3 here. 2p3 is half filled stable, right? So when I have fully filled stability or half filled stability in the electronic configuration, there will be a huge jump between the successive successive ionization enthalpies. Okay, so answer, I think everybody got the answer here. The valency of X is 1. 1 is the answer to this question, because first you remove one electron. Removing first electron is very, very easy, right? 3s1. Removing electron is very easy. So that's only 100 joules, right? But once you remove the electron, I am finding that for me to go further, I have to supply 10,000 joules. That means at this particular point, I would have had, very high, very extremely stable electronic configuration, either fully filled or half filled. I don't know, but generally it will be fully filled. That's how the questions will be asked. So once you have a fully filled configuration, it's impossible. You have to supply a lot of energy again for me to go for the next cation, say Na2 plus or X2 plus or whatever it is. Okay, right. Now this happens, right? Say if I ask you another question like this, maybe you'll get more clarity. I think this time, I think everybody should answer. Say I have an element Y. First ionization energy is 1000 joules. Second ionization energy is 1500 joules. Third ionization energy is say 6000 joules, and the fourth ionization energy is say 7500 joules. I'm just giving you random numbers. Tell me, what is the valency of Y? Now, I don't want any answers in the mic. I want every answer in the chat box. Go for it. Oh, okay. Everybody's saying 2, 2, 2. I'm getting. Okay. Okay. Everybody participate. Go for it. See, these kind of questions are very common for your school exams also. Okay. That's it. Nobody else wants to contribute? Okay, fine. So yeah, all the answers are correct. 2 is the answer to this question. Again, you can see now after the first ionization energy, I would have formed Y plus. After the second, I would have formed Y2 plus. Now this is fine, right? From Y to Y plus 1000 joules. From Y plus to Y2 plus is 1500. Again, not that much of an increase. But coming from Y2 plus to Y3 plus, look at again, there's a huge change. That means what? After forming Y2 plus, here I have noble gas configuration, or say fully filled configuration, right? So obviously the valency is nothing but 2 is the answer to this question. Again, from Y3 plus to Y4 plus, it's little easy. Again, only 1500 is the difference, right? So again, obviously that means this has become little easier. Okay, so at this point, I'm getting a noble gas configuration. So the valency is 2.
Sir,
Tell me.
Sir, so ionization enthalpy of hydrogen is the most.
Ionization energy of hydrogen is the maximum value. Is that what you're asking?
Yes, sir. He asked that.
Okay. Ionization energy of hydrogen is maximum in the periodic table. I'm not sure, but theoretically speaking, if I have to logically explain this, it's only H to H plus. 1 electron is only there. But other criteria.
Sir, actually, it is helium, sir.
Yeah, actually, yeah. Obviously, noble gases is what is going to have maximum this thing. Yeah, it should be helium. It makes sense, right? Because helium is a noble gas, already fully filled configuration, right? So obviously, comparing hydrogen and helium, obviously helium should have the maximum one, right? But whether in the after helium is it going to be hydrogen in the periodic table? Let me confirm. I look into it. Actually, it makes sense, but I don't think that's the answer. If hydrogen is not the second highest after helium, I have to give you a proper explanation why. I will look into this. Okay, but I don't think.
Sir, but it would be relatively easier to remove an electron from hydrogen, right?
Compared to helium.
Yes, sir. It is, sir.
Obviously, compared to helium, obviously removing an electron from hydrogen is obviously easy because here it is 1s2, right? Fully filled configuration. Here it is only 1s1, right?
But it only has 1 electron, so if it loses one, so it can easily form H plus.
Exactly, it has only 1 electron, and it can easily lose this electron to form H plus. Absolutely, but this forming He plus is absolutely not. No, it's not possible. But again, very huge amount of energy has to be spent, obviously. Okay, right. Fine. So now we understood how successive ionization energy works, right? There are a lot of things, successive ionization energy, Mg, Mg2 plus for Cl, Cl minus, how it works, all these things we saw, right? And please do not mug up anything. Everything is pure logic here, right? So I don't know, like if, I don't know how chemistry was taught to you till now, right? But this is how it has to be taught, in the sense that you should not be mugging up anything for that matter. Everything has a reason. Everything has a logic behind it. Okay, right. Now, see, now there is again a mismatch will happen. Say I go to lithium, beryllium, boron, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, fluorine. Okay, now I told you, when I go left to right of the period, ionization energy increases. Yes, because what is happening? Size decreases, right? So an electron becomes more and more closer to the nucleus. So obviously I have to spend more and more energy for me to remove the electron. This is fine, right? So what I expect the trend to be, beryllium should have more than lithium, boron should have more than beryllium. Then this is what is the order I expect. Okay, but there is a small change in this order. Okay, why is there a small change? I mean, how is there a small change? Is like this, like till carbon it's fine. Okay, now when I go to nitrogen, oh okay, nitrogen also, that is also fine. Till nitrogen it's fine, right? But when I go to the next one, that is oxygen, there nitrogen is having more ionization enthalpy than oxygen. Okay, there I'm having more ionization energy than oxygen. Okay, now why is it happening like this? Anybody wants to comment? This is a mismatch, right? I expect along the period continuously it should decrease, but for nitrogen and oxygen there is a change. Nitrogen is having more ionization energy than oxygen.
Sir, nitrogen has 2p3.
Half filled also.
And oxygen has 2p4.
Exactly, half filled stability is what is the answer I was looking for, right? So nitrogen is having 2p3 configuration, right? So this is half filled stable, right? So I told you, whenever you have half filled stability or fully filled stability, the ionization energy is increasing very much, so much. There's a huge jump, in the ionization energy. Okay, so that's why until this point there is no problem, but between nitrogen and oxygen alone there is a problem, because nitrogen is having a fully filled, sorry, half filled configuration. So oxygen will be having a little lesser ionization energy compared to nitrogen. Okay, see guys, this is how questions will be asked in your exams, right? I'm exactly training you for that. By that way, by obviously you are improving your knowledge also, right? So if at all you are, like just listening to the class, not taking, I don't know how many of you take notes, okay? But if at all you are not going to take notes, if you're going to study the book, it is going to be a very tedious process, very big process. Taking notes and studying it, taking notes is little difficult, I would say little time taking. You have to spend some time. Just give me a moment, people. I'm so sorry, people. Like I had an important call to attend. Basically, I'm going to my college today. Like after like years, like 1 year of college when I joined. Actually, today only. I mean, tomorrow I'm going to join the college after the lockdown and stuff. So I was taking a place and shit. Like then that's why it took some time. I'm so sorry. So I think everything is fine right here. The only thing is nitrogen is having more ionization energy than oxygen because it is having a half-field stability. That's it. Okay, right. So we'll stop with this for today, people. Is there any other question anybody wants to ask me? Is there any other question anybody wants to ask? Okay, fine then. If that's the case, we can end the class. We'll meet again. I think we'll have one extra class this week. Okay, I'll plan and tell you when it is. You'll get the message. Okay, thank you so much, people. We'll meet again.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you.